Poker's legendary champions, next generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your hosts, Brad Wilson and John Chai.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, this is your host, the founder of ChasingPokerGreatness.com, Coach Brad Wilson. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Jonathan Chai. How you doing, sir?
Good. It's Halloween.
It is Halloween. Are you dressed up? Would you like to describe your outfit for the podcast listener right now? It's quite compelling.
The bad rag costume.
The bad rag costume, complete with a CPG hat. So the
most important part. How else would they know?
No. CPGmerch.com in case you too would like to look like John. So it is Halloween. Do we have any spooky theme for today's show? Anything spooktacular?
Fortunately, no. We tried, but it's gonna be purely educational.
Yeah. So Halloween, I don't know how often Halloween ends on a Tuesday, but this is probably like a once out of every 231 year event, and we're just blowing it.
We'll have other holidays.
It's probably 1 out of 7 too, by the way. 200. That
200. That seems like, yeah. I don't know how many days are in your week, but
all right. What is the theme then? Is there a theme?
Yeah, it's going to be river sizing in 3-bet pots. Going to be a mix of bluffing opportunities, value bet opportunity. All these hands happen to be played when I'm in the cutoff as well, so another loose theme there. But real question here for me in all these hands is going to be, what size should I be thinking about using on the river?
All right, sizing questions here on Halloween. Let's see what goes down. Hand number one. I think we're gonna have 4 too, by the way. So 2 and 2. We'll tactical, Tuesday with the W before the break and then after the break. So you open the cut with Queen Jack of Diamonds. You get 3-bet by the button. I think this can be played a few ways. You can 4-bet, you can flat. Folding is pretty much off the table. So let's see what you choose. You flat. And so here we go to the flop. There's $82 in the pot. The button is the effective stack. They've got 452. Flop is 10-8-4 with the 10-8 of hearts. So you have a gut shot with overcards, and you check, and villain bets half pot. And now here we are.
Maybe like a little bit of a question here in terms of like how to continue. I think it's sort of similar to pre-flop where you could put in another aggressive bet with a check raise here. You can go with a check call, 2 overs and nut gutter. Definitely going to be enough equity to check call facing half pot. And again, it seems like folding is the only option that's off the table.
Yeah. I presume you just call because it's the most natural option, I think. Turn is the 5 of spades. There's 171 in the pot. Villain has 407. I imagine you're going to check the turn. I do think they're probably like some donkable turn cards, maybe a 7, 6. Villain checks behind. River pairs the 10. And now you have another decision point. To bet or not to bet the river? That is the question.
Yeah, I think maybe we should probably go back to the turn and just think about like, what does it mean once the PFR C bets the flop half pot and then checks back the turn? What kind of range can we start assigning them? And then maybe that helps us kind of figure out what size to use on the river to target whatever their check back range is here. But I don't know. Do you have any strong feelings about like what this range looks like? I do.
Well, your feelings are going to be stronger than mine. I imagine that it's going to be something like top pair weak kicker, Jack 10, Queen 10, maybe 9 10 type hands that big bet the flop and then check back. And then the other side of the coin, maybe a hand like 5 6 that turns a pair with a gut shot. And then also, probably their own queen jacks, their own maybe like jack nines, their own like club type hands that big bet the flop and don't turn a club and decide to kind of pack it in. So I like that would be kind of the range makeup that I would expect would be some backdoor flush draws that bet the flop and then shut it down. Maybe a hand like ace 5 of clubs might make some sense. And then some top pair weak kickers that plan on like betting big, checking back, and then deciding jack 10, queen 10. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the range that I would imagine. So some strong bluff catchers and then some hands that are not very good.
Gotcha. So fast forward to the river real quick. So then if that's like, I agree with that range analysis on the turn. So I think like here on the river, their range is now weak trips, like the jack 10s. And they still have like the 5Xs, the ace 5 of hearts, the 5 6, the 5 6 the ace 5 of clubs, those types of hands. And then, like you said, there's that like bottom portion of their range that just decided to take a stab on the flop and then give up on the turn, whatever hands they decide to put into that range. When you, after you've like decided like, hey, those are like the 3 buckets of hands that they have, how do you decide like which bucket to target with the bluff? I think the top end bucket is pretty easy. We just never get to fold out the jack 10, the jack 10 plus range. So there's no real point in even thinking about folding out that range. The next category of hands is going to be like the 5X range. How do you decide like, hey, like I should try to target the 5X range and all the hands worse than that? Or maybe I should just target the hands that are worse than the 5X.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on this run out. I'm not sure that like to target 5X feels like you would need to make a fairly sizable investment, one that would offer diminishing returns for such a narrow target. So, I mean, for me, I think I'm tempted to go a third, but I'm also tempted to go half. I'm a little nervous about getting called by ace high going a third. And that would be like why I would go half. But yeah, I think half is probably the size that I would eventually land on, but I don't mind a third either. To
So
fold
somewhere,
out there like ace high, king high type.
yeah.
Hands.
So like the first part of that analysis is just like there just isn't enough 5X, or like their 5X region isn't big enough to be worth targeting, especially considering the size of the bet that we would need to fold out their 5X anyways. And so like we need a big size to fold out their 5X. There isn't a lot of 5X anyway. So those things together mean that we're probably not going to target their 5X, and then we're going to move down one more category of hand to like their high card type hands, and then try to fold out their ace highs and king highs.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I think I went 30, but yeah, I like going anywhere from like 30 to 50 as well.
Nice. So you bet 30 or third, and they end up folding the river. Final board was 10-10, 8-5-4. John had the queen jack. Villain folded out ace high, so that's pretty nice. Guess don't need to invest the extra 20%, or I didn't need to in this case.
I don't know. I mean, we're probably thinking about ourselves on the button a lot, and I don't think either of us would ever fold ace queen facing a third on the river here. So I sort of understand I understand like why we might feel like we need to.
I wouldn't fold ace queen facing probably a bigger size than a third, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
All right. So next hand before the break, you open sixes in the cutoff, the scary, spooky cutoff. The small blind 3 bets, and you call. Flop is queen jack 4. So you have third pair. Villain checks. Pretty comfy check behind. Turn is a deuce. Villain checks again. I would say another pretty comfy check behind.
How are you feeling now? As like, the first check I'm a fan of, right? I'm like, nice, that's good. I'm glad we get to see the turn. The second check, do you start getting this feeling of like, I'm starting to feel like I don't have the best hand very often anymore, or how does the check make you feel, I guess?
it makes me feel fine. I think they're going to have enough like ace 5, ace 3, ace king, ace 10.
Ace king. Yeah.
Their ace high region, like I'm fine. I'm fine battling their ace high region, and definitely don't want an ace or a king on the river or a 10.
Yep.
And the river's a king, so that's not great.
But they check.
They check again, so they triple check.
Probably no ace 10. Probably no ace king. Probably no king jack.
Yeah. In this case, I would bet the river and target their like 10s, 9s, ace jack type hands.
Jack 10.
Jack 10, like their single pair, third pair type hand category. And I would probably go pretty big, I think. Just maybe 2x, 150. Quite big.
Nice. We're thinking along the same lines here.
Or just
Maybe,
5x jam. Just
I really wanted to make sure they fold out their jack 10s and ace jacks and pocket 10s and whatever, all that stuff. But yeah, I agree with you. I think like, again, just doing like a little bit of range analysis, like with the types of hands that the small blind gets to the river with, I think like a lot of their, like we said, a lot of their ace 10s or ace kings or king jacks are expected to, maybe start bluffing, but at least value bet the river for sure. Once this is the river, all the hands that are better than that probably start betting some point earlier. So the types of hands that the small blind is left with is going to be like the hands that are too strong to bluff but too weak to value bet. So like the jack X's immediately come to mind. Hands like pocket 10s, 9s, 8s that all 3-bet pre from the small blind facing a cutoff open. Those come to mind. I'm just hoping that range is big enough, and if I'm lucky, like that's the only range that the small blind gets to the river with, and so hopefully we can just fold out. I don't know how much, but like almost all of their entire range when they get to the river like this with a jam on the river, or maybe even just like a 2x.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I wonder like if even hands like king jack and ace jack are even in their range. Like I think those hands can bet the turn at some frequency. Like I think ace jack is probably going to bet the turn smallish at some frequency. So like I don't even know like how many like ace jack they have. Like if I were to like guess an exact hand that villain has, I would guess like 9s. That would be my guess.
Take a peek.
Yeah, villain folds exactly 9s. Boy,
how'd you know it wasn't 10s?
I don't know. I got a sense for these things.
just know.
I just know. I can't describe the gift. It's just a gift. So yeah, John Jam, they folded 9s. I promise I didn't look at it.
I know you didn't. That's why I'm
like I said, I have a sixth sense for these kind of things. All right, so after the break, we're gonna look at a couple more hands where John's in the cutoff, and I can't remember what he said was the thread of this episode, but I'm just gonna say hands from the cutoff, tails from the cutoff, coming back at you after the break.
The decision to enter a hand is fundamental to poker strategy. Too tight, and they know what you have. Too loose, and you're easy to run over. Preflop Bootcamp from Chasing Poker Greatness is a comprehensive guide to locking down your preflop game and creating true range advantage. 8 days of guided training, over 60 optimal ranges, and access to a dedicated community of players that will push your preflop game from a place of weakness to your greatest strength. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com/bootcamp. Available now. In a world where a fish donk bets the flop, and you don't know what to do, one man,
Coach Brad Wilson,
has a surefire plan to neutralize flop leads and rip that donk to shreds. NUFFLE. Available now. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com/NUFFLE. Rated R. 100 NL player, former Sergeant Elijah Shears.
Before I got NUFFLE, I had run into a lot of donk bets. And I think once you play a certain amount of hands, you know there's something wrong with our opponent's strategies, but you don't know how to play to maximize EV against it. And it's very frustrating. I looked at the document and I couldn't believe that I paid money for it. I actually doubted that it could provide value because it was so brief. But since then, it's repaid me just over and over and over again. And it's one of the most consistent moneymakers built into my strategy. That sheds light on just how bad your opponents are. And it took me 20 minutes to perfect it, and it's just amazing. Yeah, I'm speechless. It's just that good. The simplicity of it is part of it being a masterpiece.
NUFFLE. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com/courses.
All right, welcome back to the spooky themed episode where I guess villain's exact hole card. See, we found the Halloween thread. We found the spookiness. It's a dead zone type.
Yeah, you get 2 more tries. That's the good thing too. We can actually test this gift out to see if
I don't know. It's kind of finicky, you know. It's hit or miss. I get tired, you know, if I overdo it. I need to take a nap and
to recharge
gotta recharge the future looking. Let's look at this hand that we got queued up here. So I'll give you another chance. This is another spooky opportunity for you to get this action calling right.
Yeah, 5-10. I'm in the cutoff. 8 of clubs, 8 of hearts. Open to $25. Get 3-bet by the small blind to 105. Not going to be folding. Not going to be 4-betting. Let's see a flop.
When you say it like that, it seems so clear. So
997 rainbow. A lot of cards that look like an 8, but aren't an 8, unfortunately. Thankfully, though, we face a very small size. We face $60 into 220, so even less than a third. Really happy to continue here with 8s. Got lots of, even if we don't have the best hand now, which I expect to have at pretty decent frequency, we got lots of good stuff that can happen on the turn and in the river. Fortunately, this is not one of them.
Turns
4 of diamonds
4.
on the turn.
Yeah, well, it could be worse. Could be worse. 340 in the pot. Villain's got 835. John's got him covered. Expectation here before they take an action?
I think once they start out with like a small bet on the flop, could see lots of things happening on this turn. Could see anything from like 2/3 to 3/4. Could see check. I guess like the one thing that I wouldn't expect to see on this turn is another small bet. So yeah, would expect to see some larger sizes or some checking now.
What's big to you?
2/3 plus, maybe like 50% plus.
I was gonna say I would expect 50 if they bet. They bet 50%. You again just pretty much have a no-brainer call here with your 8s. 9974, no flush draw. John has 8s. River is the 5 of clubs. Villain checks.
What does he have, Brad?
Oh boy. Bet check. I mean, in general, I think after big betting the turn, they're essentially polarizing. So what hands would make sense? Like Jack high would make sense. Jack 10 would make some sense. 5-6 would make some sense, I guess. Yeah, I guess 5-6 might make some sense. So like low pair.
The only argument I would have against that is that like most regs are not 3-betting 6-5 suited from the small blind facing cutoff open.
Yeah, most of them are not. You think their value would jam, like for the most part, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a ton of like I would think their stronger hands jam. You don't have a ton of bluffs on this run out. I don't think. Like you don't have a ton of like hands that just like, oh, now I'm just gonna like put a bunch of money in on the 5, because like say you call the flop with the 5-6, and then you turn an open ender and you're gonna call the turn 2. You river 5. 5's probably not gonna bet the river. Like just your 7-8, your pocket 8s, your pocket 6s. None of those hands bet the river. All of your boats are gonna jam facing a check. So like I don't think that. I would be very shocked if they had an overpair. I guess that's like the first part of this. Like if they have a better hand, I would be really surprised if they have a better hand. And so I guess a place that I land is like probably just Jack 10, which would be the hand that makes some sense. I don't really think like Ace King Ace Queen high makes a lot of sense, but some sort of like trashy high card hand that gives up on the 5, maybe. I don't know. Jack 10 probably just is the one that makes the most sense to me.
Okay, so like you think that the range here is just like it's just all give ups. There's no bluff catchers in this range. There are no traps. There are very few traps. There are very few bluff catchers, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, like their bluff catcher would have to be like, I don't know, like Ace King high, but then like should Ace King high just like go bet and then not jam the river? You would think that like those hands have a lot of incentive to just jam the river. So like, yeah, I don't think they have a ton of bluff catchers. I don't think they have a ton of top end value. So I think they have a ton of give ups, which, if I say that out loud, I think probably the thing to do would be to bet small on the river facing river check in this spot.
Just try to induce some sort of check raise or some sort of spaz from a range that we think is almost all air.
Or maybe get a call from Ace King high or Ace Queen high if they randomly have that, or they have like the 5-6 or the Ace 5. Like that could all be pretty reasonable. Yep.
Let's go. That's what I do. Go ahead and bet really, really small on the river.
Nice.
Mostly just trying to induce a spaz. I did not give them credit for like the 5x range and sort of regret that, because once you look at his hand.
So they call, and villain has the Ace 5 diamonds. Which is a hand that makes a lot of sense. Nice. Well done. That's actually a pretty cool value bet that you found there on the river.
Yeah. Really nice when they check. Really nice when they go bet check. I was actually a little bit disappointed that I didn't go bigger, or that I didn't think of like their 5x in their range. Because like in game, I remember this spot and I was just thinking like, oh, they're just giving up. I need to induce somehow. Let me go small with my 8s and then call it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got called by like the 5x pretty quickly when, obviously my size, they're just never folding to the 5x. And I was just sort of like, I was just like, oh, like maybe I should like, consider going bigger. Like maybe they're not giving up on the river as much as I think they are. And like a lot of their range that goes bet check here is just going to be the hands that river a pair or something like that. Right. And like I don't know, felt like it might be something that I should or could have read into a little bit more, and felt like I left a little bit of value on the table. But
maybe against like this exact hand, that makes sense. But I think by and large, the bulk of their range is made up of like queen jacks, jack 10s, king queens that just like go bet and then don't fire the third bullet. So like to me, I think I think that like holistically betting small for induction is probably going to outperform targeting specifically a 5 with a bigger size. Like that would be my guess.
Yeah. I guess just to like wrap it up, but like the thing that I was worried about is that their checking range on the river is like all 5x, or like very, very heavy 5x region. Right. And like those jack 10s and the queen jacks, maybe they just triple it off. Right. And the thing that causes them to slow down is like when they catch a little bit of showdown value. But anyways, yeah, I agree that like I don't know how I would differentiate that in game, and like maybe that wouldn't even move the needle for me in a range that like still does have a lot of air in it.
It's hard to know. Like
it's hard to know.
We can't track this player down and ask them what their plan was on the river if they didn't make a pair. That's always the problem. We never know what villain strategy actually is. And actually, this may be controversial to the listener, but I think in a lot of cases, villains don't even know what their strategy is until the situation happens and they're in this situation, and then they find out like, oh yeah, okay, like I guess my plan is to like check whatever here, or jam, or what, like it just, poker is such a big game that I think a lot of times, no matter how much you still get in interesting spots that are unexpected that you've got to like figure out your strategy on the fly. And I think that's just a part of poker that will, always exist as long as humans are playing against humans. All right. So final hand, the grand finale in this Halloween spooktacular. John opens 4s from the cutoff. Terrifying. The button 3 bets. John. Even more terrifying. John summons up his courage and decides to call here at what is likely 104% frequency.
Come on, 4.
And 4s are cold. Flop is king 10-3 with a king 10 of clubs. 195 in the pot. Button has 1,300. John has 900. So John's the effective stack with $910. He checks. Button checks behind. Okay. Turns to jack. That's probably not very good for you at all, considering you most likely 4-bet most of your ace queen. So you check. Villain decides, you know what? I'm just going to keep checking. So essentially, kind of like ace 10, 9-10. I think those hands are the ones that start making a lot of sense here. I think once again, their king X probably bets this turn because I think villain's king X should bet this turn because they don't get check raised at almost any frequency just due to the ace queen distribution here. So I think villain should bet their king X. They probably should bet their ace jack as well and plan on maybe checking back on the river after betting the turn with their ace jack, something like that. So yeah, their hands that are actually pairs probably going to be ace 10, 9-10, and then the 9s, 8, 7 type range. You check back. River's the ace of spades, and now I think villain is absolutely crushed. This 4-liner going to be hard for them to have a queen. I think queens, if I think that ace jack's going to bet the turn, I think queens are going to bet the turn as well. Queen jack
10 maybe is the one that
queen 10 is the one that you got to be afraid of. But I mean, doesn't matter because you have so many queen X compared to villain that it just you're basically mashing them now, and they're gonna have 2 pair, but good luck. So it's gonna boil down to sizing here. The board for the podcast listener, the flop was king 10-3, turn jack, river ace. So ace, king, jack 10, a queen makes a straight. There's no flush available. I don't know, probably 2x on the river, something like that.
some sort of overbet.
Yeah.
Make it obvious that my value range here is a queen, and your ace jack or whatever is not gonna beat any of my value.
Nah, they have pocket eights here. I don't even. I don't
pocket eights.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
right.
That's the one.
Get another chance. Oh, I don't even go 2x.
I recharged my soothsaying abilities. Villain folded. Oh, are they fully recharged? Oh, I had 1-8. They were halfway recharged. I thought it was fully, but it was only half.
I could see the second card. Yeah.
I couldn't. Villain had 8-10 of spades, so bottom pair, which I think is going to make up the bulk of their turn check range to go along with like the pocket pairs. And yeah, maybe you don't need to make the extra investment of like 2x. Just betting pot is going to be good enough. But yeah, this is good hand to end on. Well played, good recognition, all the things. That's it.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Get your candy scanned so that you don't need any razors. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter. Join the Greatness Village community. Book a coaching session or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter at CPG Podcast. Are you a lone wolf searching for the ultimate pack? The CPG Wolf program is a close-knit brotherhood hell-bent on one thing only: chasing poker greatness. Powered by bleeding-edge wolf strats and led by Coach Brad and his lieutenants, CPG Wolves are systematically prepared for almost any spot they'll encounter on the green felt. If you want to plug into an elite team and have a step-by-step game plan to realize your full poker potential, you can apply at cpgwolves.com. Space is limited, and the pack is only as strong as its weakest member. So only the hungriest, grittiest, and most driven will be accepted into the program. Applications are open at cpgwolves.com.